stop. You are one in a million.
Mhm.
Amazing. To be able to then land that. And was the interview process quite difficult, or did you find it quite straightforward?
I think it wasn't what I expected in a good way because it was very much kind of like, what would you do in this situation? If you were in this situation, what would you do kind of thing, rather than what I knew at school was like writing long answers to questions and very like vigorous interviews processes. But it was kind of, I thought it was kind of fun and kind of trying to suss out my personality and who I am as a person rather than um, knowledge, because in all honesty,
Yep.
most people going into apprenticeships don't have all the knowledge they need for that role, which is why they're going into it to be able to learn in a
Mhm.
organization setting.
Okay. So there's something you said there, and this is maybe for the parents that were on the call last week, because Lisa, who came to speak, shared a stat with us about how the young people that tend to make it, the evidence suggests that it's not the intelligence that leads, it's actually the confidence that leads. And you've just said something there that it wasn't really the theoretical knowledge you had, it was more of the personality that you portrayed, which comes
Yeah,
also with the confidence. So it's almost kind of building that up early. Is that right?
yeah,
You think that helps?
yeah. I agree.
And where do you think that confidence for you came from? Have you always been like that, or did you work on it when you were in school, or is it at home? How
Um,
did you get that kind of confidence and personality?
I'd say I definitely grew up quite shy actually. And I feel like the time when I started seeing myself becoming more confident was in second, well, possibly sixth form, so year 12 and year 13, last couple of years of secondary school. And I kind of just started putting myself out there for things, doing more things by myself,
Mhm.
like taking opportunities where maybe not all my friends were doing it, but just not necessarily being selfish, but thinking more about my future and not just following what everyone else was doing. And that kind of helped me to become more independent and kind of just having to just, I don't know, be a bit more confident in what I was deciding to do and going to places by myself and having to make new relationships with people by myself.
Okay.
So that kind of helped, I'd say.
Excellent. That's amazing. That's amazing. Some of us as adults still struggle with those things. So, we must give you credit. Thank you for sharing that. So, that connects then with you then, Anesu, in the sense that we want to know what actually helped you stand out in the interviews when you went to Bloomberg and you applied for this equity thing that we've been talking about in what you do? What is it that made you stand out during the interviews and assessments?
Mhm. I would say one of the biggest things was actually doing a lot of research on whatever company you're applying for.
Okay.
Because I think we need to understand that thousands of people are applying for roles, thousands and thousands of thousands. So, for example, in my role, only 10 people got chosen, but across the firm, only one person got chosen for a team, two people, three people. And I would say about like 90% of the people that apply do minimal basic research. So, when you are researching the company, you would need to make sure you're being vigorous about it. So, for example, I would check my company's LinkedIn pages, which is not in which they post things that you might not necessarily see on their website, or like find like a niche fact about the company that I just slid into the interviews, which I found was really helpful. And another thing that I was actually talking to my manager about is that they can tell when someone has a genuine interest of what they want to do. So I made it quite obvious that I wasn't 100% sure about the role that I'm going into, but they will notice if the desire for you to learn is there or not, which they very much is what they look for. And I also wanted to echo what Chrystal said about showing personality,
Yeah.
confidence, and being yourself. Like they have these really long application processes as well because they want to hire someone they know is fit for the company and see getting along with people in the company as well. So if you come in as someone like who's very straight, like only focuses on work, they can see right through that basically, which is why they have such long application processes as they want to hire someone fit for the company as well. And one other thing that I also found when talking to a hiring manager, which make people stand out, is having a proactive mindset. In which one way I think people can go about this is by reaching out to other people in the company who are already in similar roles. Like for example, for me, I really leveraged using LinkedIn, I would reach out to people
Mm.
who was in the role that I'm in now, but in the years above, or just within the company for a broader understanding of how even their apprenticeship dynamic works, what they actually do day to day, showing that I'm actually proactive and I really want to learn and actually want to get into the role and understand. So yeah, those are three things that I think helped me stand out: researching the company a lot, being proactive in my work, in what I was doing, and also showing genuine interest and personality during the whole application stage.
Wow, that's good. I love how you've just done my job for me there and summarized it yourself. So I don't need to do that again. So that's great. That's great. And I think you've just touched on the other aspect I was going to come back to all three of you on, which is to do with what you actually did during your A levels. So I think, Chrystal, you've kind of given us a hint already in terms of what you worked on for yourself, in terms of building your confidence and stepping out and networking, etc. But for you, Anesu, while you are answering that, because you've told us what made you stand out at the interviews, and you've told us a little bit about going onto LinkedIn, is there anything else that you did during your A levels or even before that that you think enhanced your process within the progress within the journey?
Mm. I would say I was quite fortunate in the fact that I got a lot of work experience. Like I would join CV workshops, go to different companies. But honestly, I would say, especially for finance companies and companies like mine, they do value extracurricular activities a lot more in a sense. So, for example, I was a prefect in my school. I was the captain of a sport and I helped mentoring within the school and also had a part-time job in which extracurricular activities like this, they can teach you a lot of the knowledge and skills, transferable skills, um, that they might not be able to teach you in the role. Like, for example, being on a sports team or having a part-time job, you're already learning how to work in a team, be collaborative, time management skills. So I'll say integrating and encouraging your children to get into these things quite early is important. And even one of my managers, he was saying people would just put things on their CV, work experiences that they've done, but they wouldn't mention that they've done a part-time job, which they valued even more. Because
Oh.
as a degree apprentice, you're working and you're working and studying, in which if you have a part-time job, you're doing that, but just flip the other way around. So it's just showing that you've already got one aspect of the role handled, basically.
Mhm.
So yeah, I would say just showcasing extracurricular activities is quite important, which helped
That's
me
brilliant.
my journey, I would say 100%.
Oh wow, that's amazing. That's amazing.
Mhm.
Well, there's so much in there, and we just can't stop dropping the emojis while you're talking. Um, and I think some of the answers you've given me might kind of, or given us rather, might kind of actually spill into Kelvin, because the question to you right now is, okay, I know we've already heard a lot of the buzzwords of what counts, right? But what skills and qualities do you think employers look for in young people today based on your experience and what you've seen in your company? Because you're in the construction industry, but you're in the finance side of it, did you say that's what it is? What kind of qualities do you think the employers are looking for from young people?
I mean, to be honest, I think it varies from team to team and
Yeah.
job to job. But for my specific role, I feel like confidence is a big thing. Because
Confident.
I remember finishing my interview and being told that out of like the 15 on that day, because of like how I spoke to them and like how easy I was to talk to, kind of made the decision clear when it came to like who to pick for the role. Purely because like they're not just looking for someone who's good at the role, but they're looking for someone who's like in the team and actually be like a good addition, not just working wise, but also like as a like maybe quote unquote friend at work or such and or like things like that. But I'd say confidence is a big thing. Another thing I would say is, I guess, teamwork and skills. Like all those transferable skills that I mentioned before, I feel like they're big things, which is why I kind of always go back to like those extracurricular activities that I
Yeah.
mentioned as well. 'Cause I remember
Okay.
being part of the diversity board, for example, was one of the things that kind of shot me forward when it came to applications, purely because like you're showing what you're passionate about, what you're passionate in doing, how how you manage your time while also doing A levels, how time management, communication, teamwork, and
Mhm.
project management as well. There's so many skills that you get from like one specific extracurricular activity. So just imagine even just doing a sport as well, just doing things that you. There's a lot of things that you may think are not useful, but as you're doing them and as you're applying, you start to realize there's a lot of skills you can gain from them. So I definitely
Absolutely.
say that like, yeah, you get a lot, you get a lot.
You get a lot. No, that's really good. I think you've summarized that really well. And I think you've kind of answered this already, but was there anything else you haven't mentioned to us that you did when you're still at school that you think um I think we've touched on the confidence aspect. Is there anything else that you did at school or during your school days in terms of networks or in terms of, I don't know, uh, you've mentioned extracurricular stuff. Is there anything else that
I
you think
mean,
might have helped?
I didn't necessarily post on LinkedIn, but I did reach out to people on LinkedIn. So
Okay.
people who did my role, whether they were actually like senior QSs or people who were just apprentices as well,
Yeah.
purely to get a feel of the companies I was applying to kind of know what the companies kind of value in an apprentice.
Okay.
Because in the interview, it's nice to show kind of some of the skills that they like to see in the workplaces. Because like I said, every company is different. Every company might require different skill sets. So
Yes.
for someone who can be quite like variable, someone who can show different skill sets, it's nice to kind of focus on a few that companies like to kind of attract. But I also definitely text the people on LinkedIn, message people on LinkedIn. Went to a few events as well. Like there's a few networks on LinkedIn that you can find, like apprentice networks and stuff like that. I'd also say researching the web company websites.
Yes. Yes.
For my cover letter, I used one of the projects that was going on at that time, and I was asked about
Oh,
my
hold
interview.
on. You used a project that their own company was doing.
Yeah,
So you were writing about their own project within your application?
yeah, in the cover letter.
In the cover letter, right. So you made reference to it, which showed
Yeah.
you'd done the research.
Yeah, so then I was asked about it in the interview actually, and I was also told that apparently lots of people kind of forget the factor that it's not just about the role, but it's also about knowing that you're good for the company. 'Cause a
Mm,
lot of people can say, "Yeah, I want to do this role," but because of the amount of applications you could be sending out to all these different companies, you've got to show why you want to work for that specific company.
yeah,
Being proactive and looking out, going on the website, looking at what they're doing and how you can help and impact what they're doing is kind of what they look
absolutely.
for as well. So I'd say looking through the website as well. Like I said,
Yeah.
I was on the diversity board, so I learned a lot from that as well. Developed
Okay.
confidence through that as well, through those planning events, being involved in them, being part of the music team. All of that stuff kind of elevated these kind of skills that I'm now using in my workplace.
Absolutely amazing. I think we need to give these young people a round of applause, guys. I don't know how. I feel like I'm getting my own refresher on my own career development journey. So, what more for our young people, you know? Um, And I think you've kind of summed things up really well in how you've answered your questions and you've really given us the real stuff, which is really amazing and very practical as well. Um, Now we want to kind of ask you some questions which kind of touch on the parenting aspect for you guys, because I think you don't get to where you are on your own, right? Of course, you put in the work, you put in your own drive, you build your confidence, you build your networks, you do your part. But we also believe, obviously, parental guidance has got a big role to play at the stage and age that you guys were at. So, I want to know from you, Chrystal, um, what would you say is the kind of support that parents can genuinely, give to help their young people, their children to succeed, within their careers as much as possible?
I think the main thing that comes to mind straight away is help.
The
And
help.
it sounds kind
They
of
help?
like help, yeah.
Yeah.
It
Okay.
sounds kind of broad, but I think it's like, well, I was reflecting back to when I was in the position, like trying to make those decisions, and there was a lot on my plate at once. Um, A levels, I was doing an extended project qualification, extracurricular kind of things. I was had girl, I was figuring out what apprenticeship I wanted to do. I was also applying for university as a backup plan.
Mhm.
So there was a lot going on at the same time, cover letters, CVs, and I can imagine a lot of people might even have like part-time jobs at the same time. So it's kind of like having people who are there to take some things off your plate or to be able to support with certain things, because I think honestly I think it's too much to be going through at that point and to have
Mm.
like all at once. And I think that's what I valued, like having different things taken off your plate, taken off your mind, being able to dump everything down that you have to do and just receiving that support and that help on those different tasks. And I think another one that kind of relates to it is like just support slash listening, because sometimes what the child wants to do may not align with what the parent has always known as a thing or a path or a way of moving forward with things. So I think
Right.
sometimes like having an open mind as well is quite good, knowing that as a child you're not doing it by yourself, but at least your parent is listening and they're supporting you. They may not always agree, and that's okay, but at least listening, being open minded, and then being able to help with all the different things going on, even little things like going to visit places with them. So I applied for uni as a backup option, going with your parents to visit universities, showing that they're engaging with the whole thing that you're going through, and even attending events maybe at school, like engaging with what you're doing, showing that they understand what you're going through and can kind of like help with different bits. I'd say that.
Okay, so help in so that I suppose that comes with emotional support, practical support. At the end of the day, they're your parent, they want you to succeed. So yeah, I think that that's definitely what anyone would desire to do. And yeah, and I think we as young people, I'm calling myself we, I'm forgetting I'm on the other side this time. I'm on the parent side. But as young people, sometimes you don't ask for that help as well, right? So we also have to also, be able to do that. So for you, Anesu, I want to ask you a question. So thank you, Chrystal. Thank you for that. Um, if a parent was unsure about apprenticeships, yeah, what would you want them to know?
What
Because
would
the
I?
parent on the call, they've joined, they're unsure about apprenticeships.
Mhm.
What can you just reassure them, or what can you just tell them?
Um, I think if this is a parent who's their child is interested in doing an apprenticeship, I would say doing research is quite valuable. Like even when I asked my mum, she also said this as well. And taking some time in knowing why your child wants to do an apprenticeship. And I feel like as a parent, you should be able to know your child to an extent, like in terms of knowing their strengths and their weaknesses, being able to guide them maybe in what field they think is best. Like for example, my parents knew that I was more like logical, mathsy, so I went into finance. Whereas my brothers, they might be more hands-on and creative, so they might get into a different space. So you can really tie in and help them in that sense. And I feel like even when you're researching and looking into the future about apprentices, you can see statistics like there's about 500,000 people who graduate in the UK every year, but then there are only 150 graduate roles available, in which I found this statistic when I was applying last year. So this number is probably um, a lot higher. And I feel like from the
Sorry, sorry.
yeah,
Can you say that statistic again?
that there's about 500,000 people who graduate each year from university, but there's only 150,000 graduate level jobs available in the market. So the supply um, does not reach the demand for the
Yeah,
jobs in the market,
yeah,
which I think is very, very important to consider. Because when you do an apprenticeship, you've already got the in to a company, you're already gaining the skills, the knowledge. So that's one thing as a parent to consider as well for your child. But I guess for some university degrees, for example, if you wanted to be a doctor, there's not that many apprenticeships, or I would say
yeah,
none for that route specifically. And I would think for a lot, when I was talking to my friends about this as well, a lot of their parents were concerned about like the degree or qualification side of it. And I feel like for me, I can speak for myself. I'm doing a degree apprenticeship, so I still will be getting the same degree that anyone that the same degree equivalent that anyone that went to Oxford or Cambridge would get. It would just be a different, I'll just be just with a different university. And even in the accounting side of things, some people end up with a level 7 qualification, which is equivalent to a master's degree. And even if it isn't a level 6 or 7 degree, like if it's a level 4, 5, 3, many employers don't regard this as being less, as you would have been working alongside that, gaining skills that you wouldn't have got when you if you were doing a degree, if that makes sense. So that's also ties into the research part of stuff. As a parent, you should be researching into these types of things. And also, we're still young as well.
yeah,
um, So I think as a parent, it's important to let your child make their own choices. Like, for example, I know people who went to university, they realized 6 months in, because their parents had pressured them into going to university, they realized this wasn't for them. They dropped up and they ended up finding an apprenticeship or ended up going in their own route anyways. So I don't think it's never too late, especially when you're young, to turn around and switch your life around, basically. So I think those are things that I'd want parents to know, to do your research, and understand why your child wants to get into this field.
Mm.
Yeah, and then the research aspect of things, you'll just gain a lot yourself.
Yeah. Wow, I think there's something you said there
Mm-hmm.
about some people starting certain journeys and then realizing that it's not the right
Mm-hmm.
thing. And I think we all deserve some grace in some of these decisions and journeys because it's new for some people. And if something's not working out, you just try something different. And I think it's not always at the age of 17, 18 that you make the biggest decision of staying in one career, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I think it's good that you've actually, alluded to that as well, which is quite a good and mature way of looking at things. So that's great. And on the same trajectory, Kelvin, um, we want to know what you think the kind of conversations that should be happening or should start with parents and their young stars now, right? So let's say someone who's in their teenage years, what kind of conversations do you think will help that young person? And people are probably doing it anyway because they want the best for their children. But what do you think? Because it's a different generation, isn't it, sometimes? Yeah, but what kind of conversations do you think will be helpful to get the best outcomes?
I mean, one thing I'll say is knowing what your child is good at. My parents kind of knew that I was good at maths, I was good at like that kind of financy stuff, the sciencey stuff as well. So like they said, oh, find something in science if you're good at science, find something in maths if you're good in maths. And I know it sounds easy, it sounds like a basic thing, but hearing your parents say that to you kind of helped a lot. It kind of cut off a lot of things that you thought they wanted you to do. Because I remember telling my mom I'm better at maths than biology, and she said you don't have to be a doctor if you don't want to. There's a lot of options that you have that
Mm,
can still be quite good, that I know maybe this the role that she might have preferred, but it's something that I may be better at and I might enjoy more. And I feel like there's a lot of when it comes to talking to parents, especially like as young people, it feels like sometimes it feels defiant sometimes to kind of express your opinion and what you want to do. But
yeah.
what I found out after telling them that I really wanted to stick to apprenticeship, I wanted to apply to my apprenticeship rather than applying to uni, was just sitting down and talking to my mom and my dad about like why I chose this rule and why I wanted to do this. Was like a really important conversation to have, to be honest. Because even though I started applying to uni as a backup, I saw my mom and my dad kind of supporting me through my apprenticeship, through my interviews, through my applications, introducing me
Mm,
to people they knew who did certain roles that I was interested in, having
yeah.
talks with like literally uncles, aunties who did what I wanted to do. And at the end of the day, it helped a lot. Seeing my dad kind of take time off work to kind of take me to these assessment centers as well.
Mm,
Just trying to make my life easier, especially because I was going through A levels as well, going through other stuff. And it's like Chrystal said, it is a lot. It is a lot to do. As a
yeah.
18-year old, as a 17, 18, 16-year old, now you're going through A levels, going through apprenticeship applications, going through uni applications. It's a lot to handle at once. So having your parents support, no matter how much, like, no matter how they may be again, no matter what they might want you to do, no matter whether they want you to go to uni or whether they want you to do an apprenticeship, still seeing them support you was a lot. So I feel like sitting down and
Mm,
talking to them about like your career and what you want to do, and them kind of reassuring you, kind of maybe giving you ideas, doing their own research as well, and coming to you with numbers. I remember telling my mom I wanted to be a quantity surveyor, and she was like, "What's that?" And she went home and she did research for like the next coming months, and every day I was just like to see her sending me screenshot of like statistics and stuff like that. And
okay.
even though like at some point it got annoying, I won't lie, but it's like seeing her kind of showing interest in my future career and kind of
Yeah.
supporting me through it was like a really important to me. Could kind of push me forward, kind of encourage me to kind of keep going. Because applications they can be really like daunting.
Yes.
There's always the statistics of like only 0.7 something percent make apprenticeships, but I can't lie, I don't think it's as bad as people may kind of make it sound like it is. I feel
Mm,
like a lot of people actually get apprenticeships as long as they focus on each and every applications and have the support from like the parents. to kind of keep them going and encouraging them rather than giving up.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's very important. Thank you for sharing that. And I think, one of the things I've seen when dealing with young people, they tend to say to the parents, "Oh, this is the issue with African parents," or that kind of thing. So I think it's very important for us African parents to have this sort of flexibility, in as much as we are also quite, strict in certain dimensions. I think what you've just said is us listening more to you as well and understanding you better in terms of the skills and the strengths that we have, that you guys have, is important. Now, thank you so much for that, Kelvin. I'm conscious that there are people that have joined after these three fantastic young people have made their introduction. So I'll just kind of quickly go through who each person is. So Chrystal is a BBC Apprentice graduate, and she's an early careers advocate as well. And then we have Anesu, who is a finance and investment degree apprentice at Bloomberg. And Kelvin, who's just been speaking, is a youth worker at African Youth Arise. So we are lucky to have him. And he's also a first degree apprentice in quantity surveying at a company called Kier. So hopefully that gives you a good context on who our panelists are. I am going to put on another poll again because I think this is important just for us to sort of gauge. So the last poll, I think we had the pathways that most people are currently encouraging. I don't know if you can see the poll screen. No? Or should
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll stop sharing that. So I think, like we said, most people are kind of considering the apprenticeship. I will go back to the another poll, which is asking a question now. What is your biggest concern? So this is more to the parents, or even to any other potential apprentices on the call, or young people. What's your biggest concern about apprenticeships? Is it the fact that, you lack information about them? Or is it that you are not sure about the long-term career growth? Is it that the salaries, you're not sure about whether it's good money? Or is it the perception that it may come with? Do you find it not as prestigious or very prestigious? It depends which side of the scale that you are on. Or is it that you are concerned about the job security that comes with that? It's just kind of us making, just having a bit of a reflection. I think tonight we've received a lot of good nuggets and solutions and hopefully background context, which might help unlock this better. But I think what's leading seems to be the lack of information. Um, that's what most people have selected out of the 37 that have voted. So, you know, we are having this forum so that people can have more information. This is a third call or a third part of a series of three. So we already did the first series a few weeks ago, where we were actually told a lot of information about the types of apprentices. And if you're already apprenticeships and how to get into them and things like that. If you're already on the mailing list, there's going to be a form that you can fill in at the end to make sure you are on the mailing list. We will make sure we send you the summaries of those previous calls so that the lack of information that is displaying right now as a main concern can hopefully be tackled. Okay, so hopefully that will be helpful. And I know most of you are putting questions in the chat. We will pick them up as we go along. Okay, now we want to get into a bit of a practical session. We're just kind of getting to the end because I think you guys have done quite a lot of talking and it's already been an hour, so well done to you. We just want to ask about, the kind of opportunities that have opened up or that you think open up, starting with you, Chrystal, because I think out of the three of you, you've already finished your apprenticeship. You've done the first stage, which was was it a level?
Three.
What level was it? Was a level 3 apprenticeship that you've completed. Are you planning to do another apprenticeship? Level 4, level 5, level
Actually,
6, level 7? I don't know.
yes. Well, they have staff apprenticeships, so it's quite accessible to go into them. So I'm thinking once I've like figured out what I want to go into next, it will be a good next step to go.
Ah, okay. So you still stay within the BBC, but you choose a staff apprenticeship within the company. Okay, that's fine. So this kind of starts giving us an answer to the question I want to ask you, which is what kind of opportunities open up after completing an apprenticeship? Perhaps that can be helpful for other people.
Yeah. So I can speak firstly about the BBC, I think it differs depending on different organizations. And then I'll speak about kind of like a more broad kind of idea. But I know for the BBC, at the moment they have changed. So all apprentices are on fixed term contracts, which means after they finish their apprenticeship, they are not guaranteed a job in the organization, which I think is quite common now for most organizations. Not all of them, but it's quite common. So that basically means that apprentices are they can't guarantee that you'll be staying in the same organization. However, for the BBC, we have something where apprentices have access to internal job vacancies for up to 12 months. I think it is after they finish their apprenticeship, so they can apply for roles within the organization that are just internal. We also have things like employability sessions as apprentices get towards the end of their schemes to kind of help them make sure that they're kind of like updating their CVs, their cover letters, getting practice for interviews. We have networking events, so people can like meet different people across the organization. Some people have gotten jobs from those events as well, which has been quite good, but also inviting external people in so they can start to grow those connections with people in different organizations, helping them to get jobs in other areas. Some teams will say, we really enjoyed what you did. We really like your work. And we've got space for you. So we're going to keep you on. Some teams will just give them like short contracts, like another, like just extending another 6 months or another 12 months with us. So it really differs depending on the person, but that's some of the examples for what you can get into. And then another thing is what I just mentioned. We have things called staff apprenticeships. So that is basically the opportunity to do an apprenticeship as a staff member. So you don't have to pay for it. Your pay, like how much your salary does not change, but you'll basically be doing it alongside your job. So it's almost like a apprenticeship in terms of what we've been doing. But at this point, you've now got like a proper job, and you're working that job. You get 20% of your time off to focus on your apprenticeship, which usually equals like a day a week, where your manager will let you go off and focus on your apprenticeship, and then you'll obviously have like your exams towards the end, and then you get your qualification. So that's kind of like a good way to keep like getting qualified without having to leave and go to uni or have to pay for a qualification. Yeah, that's just some examples for different things you can get into after.
Excellent. No, thank you very much. I think, like you said, every organization will be different, but I think the general framework probably is compatible
Yeah.
across the board for most companies. So thank you. And I think the main thing I've taken from you is also it's a stepping stone. Sometimes you can stay with the company, sometimes you have to look for
Yeah.
other opportunities. So it's not a
Yeah.
guaranteed kind of lifetime kind of,
Yeah.
ongoing forever kind of thing. Okay. All right, that's good. So Anesu, can you share with us or tell us any, if you can,
Mhm.
any platforms? And because I think earlier you mentioned about how you made a very good use of LinkedIn
Mhm.
at a very early stage. And I remember, seeing your LinkedIn profile when you're in year 12, and I was so shocked. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so solid, and here you are. So, what websites or platforms would you recommend for finding either opportunities or networks that can help others get plugged in to be able to kind of to see these apprenticeships?
I would say on the network side of thing that anyone can do, both parents and children, is leveraging the networks around you already. Like, for example, I've had many people from my sixth form message me on LinkedIn asking for advice, in which two of them have managed to get offers in the same role that I'm in just from knowing me and messaging me. So that's something that really, really helped. And even parents as well, if you know people who are in the same field that your child wants to go into, ask them to have a catch-up call with them just for 10 minutes, just to provide them with an insight that could lead to like a day of shadowing, and just general insight into whatever field that they're in. Like, for example, for me, my mum knew someone in finance, and I managed to go into her office and spend a day there, in which that really opened my eyes. And I did that in year 10, and now that company, she works down the road from me. But then in terms of websites which helped me a lot, one of the big ones is called Young Professionals. In there, I think they're the UK's like leading work experience company at the moment, which I found a lot through them, in which I also became an ambassador for them, like just promoting them within my school, providing me with extra opportunities in which you can find them. They have their own website, Instagram, on social media, you'll find them. Another website which is really good is something called Uptree, in which I found a lot of work experience through that, and CV workshops, which I found very, very valuable. Like, for example, through them, I got work experience at Deloitte, which is one of the big four accounting firms, UBS, which is a leading finance firm as well. And I think a big one is Springpod, which you can do basically any course on there. You can find courses in finance, engineering, construction, and get certificates at the end of them. So Springpod is mainly online, but from experience in talking to managers and people in our HR department, they value online work experience as much as they do in person. So even if you do only have 2 certificates from Springpod to do with finance, say if you wanted to get into finance, but if you can explain properly what you learned from that work experience and certificate, they do value that a lot. And you can do that over the course of a week, 2 weeks, but it's accessible to everyone. So I don't think there's any excuse really not to be able to have at least one piece of work experience related to whatever you want to do, even if it's even things that aren't related to the fields that you want to do. So I would recommend young professionals, Uptree and Springboard, and also what I said about leveraging the networks around you, your family, close friends, family friends.
Thank you so much. Did you say the second one is called Uptree?
Yeah, Uptree. Yeah.
Okay, it's one word. Okay. And then the third one is called Springboard.
Springpod. I can write them in the chat.
Yeah, if you can put them in the chat just so that people can kind of copy and go and research as well, that would be good. Sorry, remember what you're gonna say?
No, I was just gonna say we will follow up with all these recommendations. I think a lot of people are asking in the chat in terms of are we going to get a recording? Yes, you will get a recording because some people are at work. And we'll do a follow-up document to just support so that you can go off and do your own research. Thank you.
Great, that's fantastic. Wow, thank you so much. Thank you, Anesu. That's great. That's great. Okay, so Kelvin, there's a question I wanted to ask you, but I feel like you've already answered this when it comes to sort of how to build confidence from home, which is linked to some of the stuff that's already been mentioned. I think what I wanted to ask you, which I didn't ask you earlier, is for yourself. Did you apply to many roles, or I can't remember whether you said that did you know that you wanted to do quantity surveying and you're looking for quantity surveying opportunities only? Or were you also considering other things simultaneously?
Okay, I mean, I knew I wanted to do quantity surveying when I start around 7 months before the application period. So I had a bit of time to focus on quantity surveying. So I applied to 95% of applications were only quantity surveying. But I had a 5% of my applications were also civil engineering, which was
civil engineering. So
yeah,
you knew you wanted construction or okay, right.
yeah.
Okay.
I actually got an offer for that as well, but it's more so me because I kind of got offer for what I predominantly want. I decided I kind of declined the offer, but generally I feel like you're not limited to applying for one specific role as long as you can work well through making 2 CVs to highlight two different kind of how do I even okay, so having 2 CVs and kind of highlighting different kind of skills that may be required for those different kind of roles, you could definitely make it work. Me personally, I don't recommend it purely because of the fact that it's better to have your attention on one specific role. Because I feel like me doing that, for example, yes, it worked on the end, but I feel like I had more on my plate when it came to researching companies, researching more about different roles. And it's also, I think, where in my company right now, there's schemes where if I wanted to, I could literally ask them, "Oh, I'm not really feeling quite surveying. I want to try something new,"
Okay.
and they put me into a civil engineering apprenticeship. There's people I've done that in my year who didn't like what they did and are now doing quantity surveying, and it's just as easy as that. Purely because as long as you're in the company, they know that and you work for them. And if people around, if your managers, for example, kind of vouch for you, saying you're a good worker, and
Right.
you're willing to work hard towards your next degree, they're happy to give you another chance in like different apprenticeships, something that may be well suited for you. Because at the end of the day, we're only 18 going into a world that we never actually experienced before.
Yeah.
So they're not gonna expect you to know exactly like, yeah, this is what I want to do, and I'm gonna work hard towards it, and I'm gonna make sure to get everything right the first time around. People make mistakes. People find out that maybe this is not for me. I want to try something different. So,
Mm.
I'd say definitely focus on applying for one role. You can apply the same role in many different companies, lots of companies if you want to. Just make sure to kind of do your research in different companies as well before you apply. Because every
Yeah.
company, like I said, requires different kind of skill sets sometimes. Cover letters can be quite daunting because you got to adapt them to individual companies.
Yes.
So it's definitely harder to apply to more companies rather than kind of focusing on a few. But some people can make it work. And if you're someone who can like manage time quite well and can do deep research in every company you apply to and every role you apply to, then yeah, definitely go for it. But for me myself, I'd say focus on the role. And if you can pick companies who kind of give you this option of kind of dropping your current degree, the current role, and going for something different in the same company. So just
Mm.
it's good to do research. It's good to do research.
Yeah. You do the research, and once you're in the door, then you can explore the opportunities internally. Okay, that's great. That's great. Um, I know we've got a lot of questions in the chat, which we want to just come to, but before we do that, um, we will ask you guys, some final questions directly, just for you to kind of take a breather before we go into the chats. And I think between ourselves, we'll sort of manage the questions in the chat. Um, I just want to ask our audience again, and this is now leading to one last component, which is for us to gauge and understand the industry that interests your young people or your teenagers the most. Okay. I appreciate this is not exhaustive, but this is just for us to know that when we are sending, some information across, we are able to sort of cover the different sectors and know which ones are most popular, and have got the biggest interest. And if you're unsure, it's fine. It's just, there are some sectors that perhaps attract. So our three panelists are covering three different sectors because Chrystal is media and creative, so that's BBC, so that's there. Anesu, Bloomberg in equity related role, that's finance and business. And for you, Kelvin, you are in quantity surveying, which is construction and engineering, and you did say you were also interested in engineering, so those kind of two align and are connected quite well. It would have been nice if we had someone who was in healthcare as well, but just for the purposes of this session, I think we did try and explore different areas. So I think healthcare still leads, and then finance and business seems to be okay. I'm gonna close the poll, then we can all see what the results look like. And here we are. It looks like the finance and business is competing quite well with healthcare, and then obviously construction and media follow, oh, technologies there, and then some are unsure, which is absolutely fine. But yeah, I think this gives us an idea of our community sort of level of interest when it comes to different industries and sectors. So I will ask for some kind of closing reflections from you guys just before we sort of look into the chat and see what people have been asking. More or less asking your words of wisdom. Okay. Um, Chrystal, what would you say is your advice that you would just want to give any teenagers or any young people that are listening to this or that are going to listen to this later? What's your one piece of advice?
I would say, I think I'll speak more about the bit before you apply. Um, and by that I mean kind of like the going up to the application process and you're in school and it's kind of like what do I need to be able to apply or what can I be doing now to be able to apply. And I would most likely say, I don't know if Kelvin touched on it earlier, but it's less like the specific things you're doing and more what you're getting from what you're doing. So, for example, when I was in secondary school, I didn't really know what I wanted to get into. Even when I then had to make the decision, I wasn't quite sure, which is why I went for business. Um, you don't have to focus so much on like the specific things you're doing, but more about the skills you're getting from it. So, for example, I think when I was in year 7, I did a lot of like extracurricular stuff. I think I joined sewing club or something like that. I did most of like the school shows. I attended netball club, started leading netball club for younger students, which have nothing really to do with what I'm doing in my career now. But when I'm now applying, I'm talking about the skills I got from it. So, for example, when I was in the school drama shows, I had to be disciplined to show up to all my rehearsals. I had to be fast on my feet if we were doing things to do with improvisation. I had to um, use teamwork because I'm working with the rest of the cast. I had to be creative, bringing ideas to the group of people. So it's just kind of like drawing skills from different things. So not to be so fixated on the things you are doing, or my friends are doing this, or I want to do this because it sounds more fun, but just try and do it like as many things as possible. And then when it comes to applying, you're then going to pull skills from that because that's what the people who are hiring you are looking for. They're not looking for someone who's done like a full degree in that area, but it's someone who has got the skills to be able to kind of like blend into that area and blend into that organization well, based off of just experiences you've got. So yeah, I'd never, for example, when I applied, I never worked a job in my life, and I thought that was really going to affect my application. But what I could speak about was just what I had been through. So for example, I remember speaking about how I did the Duke of Edinburgh Award. I did my bronze medal, and the Duke of Edinburgh, it's kind of like a big expedition you do, and there's a bronze level, there's a silver level, there's a gold level, and everyone always told me bronze isn't important. Like no employers care about bronze because it's the gold level that everyone like cares about. So don't even bother doing bronze. But I did it anyway. And actually, when I then got my role, my manager was like, "Oh yeah, when you spoke about your bronze DAV, that really like I really wanted to hire you after you spoke about that because it wasn't about the level, it was about the skills that I got from it." So I spoke about how, we had to use teamwork, had to use initiative because we're in the middle of nowhere. What do we do? And she could see how those skills could align with what I would do in the BBC. So yeah, that's basically my little bit of advice.
Wow. That is that is some good advice that you've given there. And I think when we sort of consolidate these reflection points, all of the stuff that you've said kind of links very well to summarize most of the stuff that's worked for you. So you're not giving theoretical advice, you're actually giving stuff that's worked and that you have applied. So thank you, thank you, thank you so much. Your own last reflections, Anesu. So what kind of mindset do you think helps young people succeed? Because, and this is more particularly in the competitive
Mhm.
opportunities, because you gave us some stats about what happens with the graduate. There's 500,000 coming through, and there's only 150,000 opportunities available. The world is changing, AI is taking over, things are getting more competitive. So what do you think a young person, what kind of mindset do you think helps a young person to succeed in the environment that we're in?
Mhm. I think having a growth mindset and resilience are the top two mindsets that someone needs to have in such competitive industries. I'm not sure if you guys have heard this statistic as well, is that getting a degree apprenticeship or an apprenticeship is now even harder than getting into Oxford and Cambridge, just purely because of the volume of people that apply. Like even myself, I would say I applied for quite a few apprenticeships in which I did get rejected from some of them, especially at the start of the applications in like September, October time. But as long as you see that and use that as a sign to grow and learn from, like after those, I started changing up my CV, reaching out to people, as I said before, in similar roles to me, asking, "Oh, what do you think about my CV?" Or even at the end of interviews, like asking for feedback. So, for example, the company I'm working at now, I remember I received really good feedback that I asked for, in which I applied that feedback in the next stage of the application process, in which the interviewers were like, "Oh, we really liked that you said that," in which I just said what the person before gave me as feedback. So if you take on that feedback and really see everything as redirection, that's very important. Like I know a lot of people from my sixth form who said, "Oh, I'm going to apply to apprenticeships, I really want to do an apprenticeship," but then after they face 2 or 3 rejections, They just saw that as their sign to go out and just apply to uni as a backup. And now they're at uni and a lot of them are regretting what they did. So just having that resilience to carry on going no matter whether you're getting rejected left, right, and center. And in the end, I did end up getting 3 apprenticeship offers. So you do really need to stay self-motivated. And I feel like for apprenticeships as well, you don't get as much support in school as you do for university, because schools are more tailored to help people go down the university route. So a lot of it is keeping yourself motivated. So I guess parents, this is where you can come in, giving your children words of encouragement, just seeing what you can do to help them through the busy application season, since they'll have university applications like mocks for schools, exams. So just knowing that you guys are a support system for them also. And also, I guess worst comes to worst, if it did come to applying and you didn't get any offers for this academic year, I know people who have taken gap years in which they spent a lot of time researching and applying. So that resilience and growth mindset aspect of it, in which now they're in their dream roles in companies, whereas if they went to university just because they didn't get the apprenticeship, they would not be doing that. And I feel like a lot of it, you need to think of the end goal and why you're actually applying for these apprenticeships, and where, like, say, where you want to be in 5 years. And if you do really want the apprenticeship bad enough, then that will not be a big factor in terms of it being a competitive industry. Yeah.
Wow. So the resilience is going to be essential, whatever the case may
Yeah.
be, because I think the competition, but the fact that you were able to get 3 offers, I think that's really incredible. Thank you so much for sharing that. The last question is for you, Kelvin. I think Rumbi, you've got a question for Kelvin, haven't you? Oh, we can't hear you. I think we've lost your sound. Right, okay. Her audio is just connecting. We do want to just make sure that.
I think I'm
Oh,
back.
are you back? Yeah.
Yes, thank you. I was just going to ask, oh, sorry, I thought you back. I was just going to ask Kevin, because I think in our prep session, and there is a lot of prep that went into this, which shows the dedication of the young people that we're working with and that are currently with us. Kevin, you mentioned, I think you also mentioned it in your interview when we were interviewing at Aya, as a youth worker, you mentioned about that you went to a summer school, which was quite impressive because other young people will be doing, other things, but you decided to go to a summer school. Can you tell us a little bit about that? What it was, how you found out about the opportunity before you share your reflections? Thank you.
Okay, so when you came to summer schools, kind of found out about it, let's say January times when I was in year 12. So after the December mocks, I was talking to some friends I made in the year above me, and they'll give me advice about things that may help on my CV and also personal statement, things that kind of like lead me towards a decision when it came to what I wanted to do. 'Cause those times I was still unsure. I was jumping between from medicine to engineering to finance. I generally didn't know what I wanted to do. So they kind of advised summer schools because it was always good experience. I was going to learn a lot. I was going to meet new people. And I kind of said, okay, first, and I went for it. And to find them, I just searched up like university summer schools on or Safari or Google or whatever, and I found a few. But the only problem is that a lot of them kind of cut off after December. So I was already like dealing with like less summer schools available because of like how late I was, which is kind of like, yeah, it was a lot. But I was kind of late, but I still found a few openings. Mine was a Uni of Leicester, and it was a STEM and business summer school. That's the one I got. So when I went to the summer school, they kind of put us in groups. There was a medicine one going on at the same time, but that was like at a different complete section of the uni. And the STEM and business were together. We kind of had to work on a project where everyone kind of took over a different role. So as STEM and business were kind of focused on a different section of the project, and I focused on like more financy kind of part of the STEM project of the project, which was building a sustainable component for a F1 car, which sounds a bit going into a summer school. You think that something like extensive or something that's gonna take education value, and it can be, but actually a quite fun activity to do with people I never met before. Kind of talk to people, talk to the university students. Kind of had people we made teams like on the spot. Kind of made ideas, developed on ideas. We ended up actually using physics and maths to kind of make sure that our idea was actually possible. We ended up kind of making an engine, which was all like interesting. It was quite fun to be honest. And I remember talking about it in my CV again, and it was asked in my interview. And well, I was asking about it in the interview, and they only had positive things to say about it. They had questions, and at the end of the day, it ended up like helping me get into the role I'm in now. So I'd say summer schools are things that are often overlooked. Many people don't like look at summer schools. Everyone talks about work experience and like things that are like in the roles, but summer schools are actually also a big source of work experience. They're a big source of like developing your knowledge, developing your skills, and I mean, you get a certificate at the end as well, which you can also show show in the interviews and your CVs. Which when it comes to the applications, it sounds silly, but generally every little helps. Like anything that you can have that kind of pushes you forward and shows your dedication towards your role helps a lot. So I'd say that me doing that summer school was a big thing in my application as well. And before I finish, it's also about how you speak about the summer school, not just listing things that you did, but how they relatable to your role, how they like what kind of skills you learned, what kind of skills you developed, and how you may use those skills for the current role, for the role you're about to apply, the role you're about to apply to. And it's all simple things, but when they add up with your CV and your other work experience, your A levels and all extracurricular activities, they add up to quite a substantial amount, which kind of which can edge you forward when it comes to application season.
Fantastic. Thank you, Kelvin. Really impressive. And I think that's why it was important for me, as someone who was interviewing, and when we're having a chat, it's something that really stood out. And I just thought it's really important for parents to know about the summer school. Yes, jobs are important, work experience is really important. However, also summer schools can also be really beneficial in building that confidence and working on a project. In terms of getting leadership skills, being creative, innovative, and so on. So, in terms of while you're just taking a breather, in terms of have you got anything else that you would like to share in terms of some of your reflections, I guess, Kelvin?
Okay, in terms of like summer school or my role.
Not just your role and just your experience from the beginning, sort of like to the end of your application process, and now that you're within the role.
Okay, so when it comes to the role, I'll start with that because since it's like what I'm in now, I'd say that seeing getting into the role on the first day, talking to people who commercial managers, people who you don't see often because they're way like they're levels ahead of you, and talking to them and actually having conversations, joking around and thinking, you know what, this place isn't as daunting as I thought it was. I'm on the first day getting in there, thinking I had to code switch heavy, thinking I have to now start speaking differently. And in some senses, yes, you have to. But it's also like it wasn't as daunting as I thought it was gonna be. I thought I was gonna have to change myself, but I didn't really have to. And it's like those are the kind of things that is aren't spoken about purely because like everyone makes it sound like corporate is this like world where it's just 9 to 5. You're tired. You have to get on time. You're tired by the end of it. And even though mine is not purely corporate, because yeah, I am on site a few times a week as well. It kind of shows you that there's variety and there's flexibility in certain roles. I don't have to both be on site. I can work from home sometimes, and it's like knowing that after going to the role kind of made me think that yeah, I made the right decision. And another thing I'd also say is seeing the progress from the first day, asking for work, asking to shadow, to now taking care of my own subcontract and doing things that I didn't think I could do at the start, and see how much I progressed through and how much responsibility they're now putting on me when it comes to managing subcontractors that like are worth millions. And I'm like, I never thought I'd reach that level, but I'm now there. So it's like seeing your progress throughout these months, throughout the weeks, and seeing how you can develop, seeing how I've developed, and seeing what things I have upcoming kind of keep me going and kind of show me that like yes, I've come a long way and there's more to do. If that makes sense as well. And when it comes to application process, I'd say from kind of not knowing what I want to do to then getting the role was definitely like a full circle moment. I'd say purely because starting from my parents really wanted me to go into the medicine route, and I was really close to going into it, but kind of having the last minute change and the support and kind of doing what I'm doing now was definitely like it was a full circle. It was like a proud moment kind of thing where I thought, you know what? Yes, I didn't necessarily go into what they wanted me to, but every time I go home now, my parents are just happy to see me. They're always happy to talk about it. I remember when I got the role, they were probably happier than I was, and and that shows a lot. That kind of helped a lot, seeing how happy they were about my career decision, how supportive they were. So I'd say that reflecting like my journey so far, I feel my parents were generally a big part of my journey. Seeing how happy they were by the end of it, seeing how I'm now, and what they always like to love to mention is, oh, you're going to uni 2 years, but you're getting a 3 degree. So that they always love to hear the fact that you're going to uni and getting paid, and that fact just it rings in their heads. And I love to see how happy they are about like my career journey, and I love to see how they also encourage like their friends and families now. They always encourage their aunties and uncles to tell their kids that there's other routes available. And it's like seeing how I had to convince them, had to tell them about it, to now seeing them advertise it to other people in the family, other people they know, shows me that they've definitely learned a lot, and I'm glad they did. So that's kind of my reflection. I feel like yeah, there's a lot to it. There's more, but if I keep talking, I won't finish. So.
Wow, that's good. I think you've really ended that on a great note and a positive note as well to give credit to how proud your parents are. And I'm sure every parent would desire that kind of, joy for themselves. So can we just give all these three fantastic panelists their well-deserved support and emojis? They've done so fantastic. I mean, we've still got a couple of things we want to go through from what they've shared, but if you have really benefited from this, I think, I personally, I have. Um, so we really appreciate what they've done and what they've delivered. And one of the things I know a lot of people have been asking for, getting the recording and, getting everything sent across. I'm just going to put in the chat there's a feedback form for this. Would really value your feedback so that we know how else we can support um, you as parents alongside other organizations or initiatives. But you completing the form is helpful because it tells us that you're happy to receive information from us as well. Okay. So if you can kindly just provide your feedback, it'll only take you 3 minutes max or 2.5, actually, depending how quick you are. But it's really just a quick reflection of how you found the session, and then you can also consent to receive information afterwards. Okay. And then we also did do an introduction of the organization African Youth Arise. I'll also drop some because I think in the last call, some people didn't manage to see how they could register. If you've got a young person who's between the age of 11 and 18, search for African Youth Arise on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn. You will be able to see us. But I'll also put a form that you don't have to fill in right now, but make sure you copy and paste it so that you can fill it in at your earliest convenience if you would like to register your child to participate in African Youth Arise activities. And most of the activities and projects that we run are to equip young people with the soft skills that they are going to need for their growth and personal development in order to maximize, their entry into opportunities similar to what we've seen Chrystal, Anesu, and Kelven share about and beyond. Okay. And I think that's something that will be quite helpful. So thank you so much to all the panelists. We have not finished yet because we just want to have a look at what some of you have asked in the chat, and we'll kind of round up some of the questions that are there and be as helpful as we can.
Thank you so much, Salome. I think you did a fantastic job with in facilitating all these young people. It was quite a lot. I was rather impressed with with the young people in terms of like, when they start to drop all these nuggets. I'm like, how do you know that? I don't even know that, and I'm my age. It's quite impressive, and the resilience, the wisdom, the knowledge. It also questions that idea about, I always find out from parents when they ask me, it's like, oh, my daughter isn't very intelligent. I want them to do an apprenticeship. And, listening to these young people, there is nothing unintelligent about what they were saying. And, we're really impressed. And thank you so much once again to our panelists for sharing all these nuggets. And for me, I think one of the highlights and one of my takeaways is starting early, in terms of starting investing in yourself very early and taking that time. While other young people are on the streets doing whatever they're doing, these young people were busy investing in themselves and upskilling themselves. So, as parents, let's try and support our young people in terms of when they're upskilling. I always say to young people, money is really important, but also upskilling yourself and getting that experience really early is even much more important, because time shall come where you make so much money, but sometimes you don't always get the opportunity to upskill yourself. So we're going to focus on questions now. I think there's quite a few questions in the chat. One of them, I think, was around someone who's doing a construction course in college. Are they able to do an apprenticeship? Yes. Yes, they can. Apprenticeships, they start from different levels. So, as you heard from Chrystal, it starts at level 3, or you can do a level 2. So, I think apprenticeships meet you where you are, right? So for someone like me, I could relate to what Crystal was saying. I did a degree. Then afterwards, when I was in my working, sort of like in the middle of my working career, I also did an apprenticeship. While I was I worked 4 days a week, and I was given a day of work. So yeah. So in terms of, does anyone have a really burning questions that they would like to ask our panelists? We saw a question around I think it was immigration status. We are trying to get hold of an immigration specialist to come and talk to us about apprenticeships and immigration. Just bear with us. We will come back, and if we don't manage to get a specialist coming to talk to us, we will add it in the frequently asked questions after when we send out the information. Has anyone got a burning question that they would like to ask? While we are reading through some of the ones in the chat. No questions? So someone said, I wanted to ask about my current child's pathway. They're in year 10 and they're doing a foundation tier subjects. Would this impact their future career options, especially careers such as medicine, engineering? If foundation tier can limit certain pathways, what would you recommend we do now? Should we consider moving to a higher tier subject? And so, what support would you need? Anyone wants to take a jab at that, or part of the question, and then Salome and I can sort of support once you guys have had a go. Anybody want to take that question?
Yeah, I can. I'm assuming
Go ahead,
like
Chrystal. Go ahead.
it's kind of like GCSE, so there's like foundation and then there's higher. I would say, so for me, the apprenticeship that I was taking was 18 plus. And for most of the 18 plus schemes, this is just kind of like the requirements, and then I'll go into like the skills. But requirements wise, they definitely leaned more towards like my A level grades rather than my GCSE grades. So what my GCSEs did is they kind of transitioned me into my A level options, and then my A levels transitioned me into my apprenticeship. And then in terms of, because my GCSE grades transitioned me into my A levels, they weren't as necessary for when I was applying for my apprenticeship, if that makes sense. So basically, what I would say is, and then kind of going on to what Romy just mentioned, is you don't have to be necessarily like have all the experience and necessarily be, I don't know, quote unquote intelligent to be able to do an apprenticeship. And I think she mentioned something about apprenticeships can meet you where you are, and I think they can, like, depending on the level that you go for. So I don't think you have to try and kind of like, I don't know what the word is, like try and feel like you have to get to a certain level to be able to apply. So if that is the level that that person is working at, then that's absolutely fine. And there will be opportunities that are available that can open up with that. It may not be the degree level, because when you're that age anyway, when you're 16, it's usually like the level 2, level 3 options, I think, that are open for that age. So with that, that's what you would use your GCSEs for. But in terms of the higher levels, it would then go into the A level territory. But I would say, yeah, there's so many different schemes out there. And it's kind of up to preference, whatever you decide to go for. But there definitely isn't a lot of pressure to have like loads of to be quote unquote intelligent to be able to apply.
Great, fantastic. Anyone else, Salome? Have you got any other insight on this?
I think I think Chrystal has kind of summarized it quite well. What I would just say is, because I also work with apprentices in my own kind of way, where I've got some people that start at, level 3, level 4, and then some that level 7, and everybody is coming from different backgrounds. I think it's just about understanding the minimum entry requirements for the level that one is getting into. There is something for everyone, and I think the way this country is designed, there are so many professional courses that that run parallel to kind of allow people to develop their career depending on the type of industry. So I think the apprentices will definitely meet you at some point, depending how far you go, and doing a foundation, you know, um, tier subject along the way is perfectly fine from what I've seen.
Thank you. So I think also in terms of, I think so what I got from that question is around the young person is doing a foundation level, so sort of like tier level, and I think you get a C and below as a grade when they do their GCSEs, for example. Um, so I think if depending on, I think normally apprenticeships, they normally say C and above. So they've got the opportunity to get that C grade. However, if you think that your child is capable of obtaining a C and above, probably it's worth actually going to the school and starting having those conversations, understanding the ability of your child, and actually think about what is the extra support that they require. There are a lot of a lot of extra lessons or tutorials that you can pay for to get your child where they need to be if they've got the ability to do so. So I think that's what we can sort of like advise. If you think actually what they're aiming for, or where you think, because I know that a lot of us have moved from one geographical area to another. They've probably just placed your child in that foundation because they want to see how they go. As a parent, I think it's really important to go to the school and understand why they are in that foundation tier group, for example. And then if you think, or if the child also thinks that they're able to achieve higher grades, then offer that support as much as possible. I hope we've answered that question. So another question that we have received, I think this is to Anesu. I'll direct this to Anesu. Is there apprenticeship for finance and investment open every year? So within your company, do they take up these apprenticeships on a yearly basis?
Yeah, every year around late October, November, that's when the application process for my one opens up. But also within the company, they have a lot of different apprenticeships. So, for example, there's some in news, media, data engineering, like you name it, they probably have an apprenticeship. So, and all of them are open on a yearly basis. But for my one, yes, late October, early November, that's when it opens up, in which they do sessions to give you fast track access to the link when it comes out as well. So if you wanted to check out my company's website, you could probably find that there.
Fantastic. Fantastic, Anesu. Thank you so much. Yes, like for example, I work for DHL and we have an intake on a yearly basis in terms of our finance degree apprenticeships. So go on the website, Bloomberg, or you can go on the DHL supply chain. But there are many, I think, companies that are offering that on a yearly basis. What are the sporting apprenticeships that are available? If anyone knows, please add it in the chat. I'm not quite sure. However, you can sort of like do some research around, what sort of apprenticeships in sports that can be done. So sporting apprenticeships or anything related to sports, you can start to Google that and to find out what sort of companies that they are in the field, and you can start to look for some apprenticeships. I think a good start would be, some of the I would say some of the football teams, for example, some of the rugby teams, for example. You can start with that without just, without even sort of like Googling, and just have a look on their website to see whether there are any available. I would also, in terms of sport, just on top of my head, there are a lot of gyms up and down this country, like fitness clubs. That would be something I would say to explore. If anyone else has got other ideas and stuff, please do share it, so that the parent can benefit from that. Where or how do we find the apprenticeships? I think there is an apprenticeship website specifically dedicated to apprenticeships, but mostly, I mean, I can get Salome. Where can someone find, roles and apprenticeships other than what Anesu and Chrystal and Kelven have already mentioned? Can you think of any?
Yeah, so the gov.uk website
Yeah.
has got like tremendous resource on the apprenticeship roles. And I think if you sign up to it, you get alerts that are for specific career types. And then there is also I mean, I've not really known much about this company, but this organization. I came across an organization called Blossoming Beyond Borders on LinkedIn, who are dedicated to actually supporting the young immigrants. So I think those people that are asking questions about visa restrictions and all that, so they seem to have a dedicated support platform where they're connecting, immigrant, individuals to companies or to resources and things like that. That could be a good place for people that are looking outside of the other resources that we've already shared, which link to what Anesu put in about the young professionals. So I would definitely say gov.uk. And obviously, I think one of the young people said about going to individual websites. Of course, that
Yeah.
sounds like a chore, but I think part of the information we're going to be sharing afterwards to those that will be consenting to be on the mailing list, there is some recommended ones that Sandra did share with us in terms of
Yeah.
companies that recruit on an ongoing basis at specific levels of apprenticeships.
Okay, fantastic. Another question we have here, would you recommend doing A-level first or apprenticeship are doable after GCSEs? I think it goes back to that sort of like same question, that it depends in terms of whether your child wants to do apprenticeships like straight away after GCSEs, because they are different levels, so they can start at a different level. But in terms of, I think, the degree apprenticeships, it's either you would have to have had started at a lower level of a level of apprenticeship, then you then get into the degree. So I don't think you'll be able to do from GCSE straight to a degree level apprenticeship, unless probably, I know like Scotland does something like that, but not in England. But I think it really just depends on sort of like what you want to pursue. I guess. Anyone else want to have a jab at responding to that? I think all of our panelists, they did A levels prior to going to do their degree level apprenticeship.
Well, I was gonna say, sorry as well.
Mhm.
I believe the government is pulling out funding, or they have started pulling out funding for the higher level seven, kind of like master's apprenticeships, to put more funding into the lower, like level two ones. So that is also that also is something that the government is trying to invest more into, those like lower levels that you can enter from like the age of 16. So it could also be a good option as well. But I think again it depends on like whatever that person wants to do. But yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I can confirm that my work was panicking because because the government are rejigging the apprenticeships. But I think it's absolutely fair that the lower level and sort of like foundational apprenticeships get more focus, because there is so much competition in that. So brilliant. Thank you, Chrystal. Another question I have is, my daughter wants to become a neurosurgeon. Is there an apprenticeship for route for this? Anyone wants to have a jab before?
I mean, when it comes to healthcare, especially, it's one of the routes that aren't really made for apprenticeships.
Mm.
Most of like, if you want to be a doctor, if you want to be a nurse, if you want to be a care worker, or even a neurosurgeon, all of those kind of healthcare roles, cause of health and safety issues as well, they are more like 99% of the time probably gonna be a university route. I heard something, don't take my word for it, because that's also me kind of shooting in the dark, but I heard things about NHS apprenticeships. So there's a few, but probably maybe not for neurosurgeons specifically, but for all the healthcare roles. But definitely, probably for neurosurgeons, especially, definitely university.
Thank you, Kelvin. And I think if you can just go and do that sort of like research, that would be great. I also saw quite a few apprenticeships and I know that like the midwives, sort of like the nursing route. I've not come across the neurosurgeon one. However, you never know. So probably worth really exploring and finding out sort of like what that route looks like. Mm, Just what else? What okay? I'm just going through all the questions to make sure that I've covered all the questions. This one was about recording. Salome, if you see any questions that I've not asked, I've tried to do it systematically, but the screen keeps moving. Um, Anyone else who's got a question that I've not responded or that's not been responded to? Right. So someone said, I think it's Lucy who's asked this question. I didn't take the traditional GCSE route. Instead, went to college and completed level two maths, English, and level three game art. For someone like my background who wants to get into an architecture apprenticeship, what could I start doing now to stand out for other applicants? Who can I post this to? Shall we start with Chrystal? Chrystal, would you mind just supporting in terms of what can they do to stand out um, for when they are now going for their apprenticeship?
I think when I was around that stage, one thing that my school did was they put like a weekly or bi-weekly newsletter with just random things that people were doing. So that includes things like summer schools, different organizations would put on like just webinars that you can just listen into, um, work experience that you can look for. But then, unless you mentioned even like the courses you can do on like Spring Pod, and you can like literally get like micro credentials. She Anesu actually said some really good stuff. She also said like going to even like family members and stuff, and like getting experience in different areas, almost like just by talking to people to get different experiences and stuff. But I say overall like experiences, and just getting experiences from different areas, and then being able to like have like a varied skill set because of the different things you've done. So I'd say if you know like exactly what apprenticeship, which you said like, architecture, then it would also be good to then start streamlining, because now you've got to a point where you know what you want to do, streamlining on things to do with architecture. So if there's like architecture events going on, like going to those events, networking with people, reaching out to people on LinkedIn, and again like those micro credentials, courses and things like that would be really good to, but not just like saying, oh, I've done this, but also like as a result of doing it, what's it then helped you to do, or how has it shaped who you are, and like what skills have you got from it? Would be really good.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Chrystal. I would also add one of the things that we did with Aya, with African Youth Arise Young People. We went to a university. We were just doing coding on the day, but we had an opportunity to meet university students who were showcasing their architectural work as the final project. So you can contact sort of like universities, or yeah, you can contact universities and just find out when the sort of like architectural faculty are going to be, are going to be featuring and presenting their projects. They were presenting it to the public, which was, I thought it was a fantastic idea. And it gave our young people a really good insight. They went to speak to the students in terms of the material that they use to do their projects, and so on and so on. So it's one of the things that you can possibly do. You can possibly do a day in the life of. You can contact someone on LinkedIn and create a relationship with them safely. By the way, because you're a young person, make sure safety is really important, and just find out in terms of like what does your day look like as an architecture, what kind of material, and just sort of like develop sort of like interest. That's anything else that you can think of, Salome, Anesu, so that we support this young person in acquiring their apprenticeship.
I mean, I know when it comes to architecture as well, especially, they love to see portfolios. So anything that you like to do on the side, like if you like to build things on the side, if you like to go on like systems or these like many softwares online and make your own projects, it's nice to kind of log them, have evidence on them, PDF, print them out. So you can kind of build a portfolio of all the things you've done to show how willing you are to get, like how much you love this kind of architecture, how much you're willing to do for it, and how good you are at it. Because it's also good to see how your head start. Like not many people have portfolios, but when you have one, it kind of shows how willing you are to kind of gain that experience and have a head start in your career.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Kelvin. I will hand it over back to Salome. I think we've gone through all the questions. If we've not covered any questions that you've asked, we do apologize, but we're conscious of time. But please help me in thanking our panelists, Kelvin, Anesu, and Chrystal. They've been absolutely fantastic. I think we always read about young people from our community on the wrong side of sort of like of the media. But I think we really need to applaud these young people for a fantastic job that they've done and they're continuing doing, and not just for them to attain and to achieve, to be high achievers, but also coming back to give to the community and giving their time to say that I'm not going to be the only person in the room that looks like me. I want other people also to have this opportunity. So I'll hand it over to Salome to conclude the meeting. But thank you so much for all the parents and young people also that were in the background supporting. Over to you, Salome.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you guys. We really appreciate your time and all the nuggets you shared. I don't think I need to summarize anything else. You guys have done great. For any parents that are still on the line, if you want to drop one word or anything that you will remember that's memorable from today that you want to take forward, please just put it in the chat. But these guys, they've done a fantastic job. We are really, really grateful for what you have shared with us. And, for those that are still on the call that have provided consent on the form to receive further information, we will be in touch. I think there is a lot to share in terms of links or in terms of summaries, etc. So I think it'll be nice for us to know what you have thought about today. If you haven't filled in the feedback form, I will just quickly put it back in the chat, but I think most of us probably have. But I think there are common themes that are coming up in terms of what you guys think about it. Inspiring, I can see that. That's excellent work. So well done. Those are the main things that are coming up. Yeah. So the load can be overwhelming when making applications and the schoolwork. So the support is important. Yes, absolutely. This is why we are doing what we are doing. So yeah, I think this is a perfect note. It's just gone 8 o'clock. We've been here since 6. So I think they deserve a lovely, lovely treat, our panelists, once they finish this call. So thank you so much, everybody. Just remember to keep connected to African Youth Arise. Like I said, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. We are on all those platforms. Just follow and like and make sure that you don't miss any future events and webinars or workshops. Okay. So thank you so much, Chrystal. Thank you, Anesu. Thank you, Kelvin. You guys, you deserve an amazing weekend. I hope you've got some good plans ahead of you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Take
Thank
care.
you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye now.